Don't recycle. Don't be kind to other people. Read reading, be narcissistic.
Lemon-scented freedom of speech since 1787.
KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles, the Cary Harrison Files. Crack the code and break the lock. Racing shadows round the clock. We're the ones to find the truth. For every soul denied the truth. Yeah, we'll find the truth. The Cary Harrison Files.
And it is the Cary Harrison Files. Glad to have you aboard. Here we go. Every week I say it. Another week. How do you even wrap your head around it? Well, we're going to wrap our head around it. We're going to talk about Operation Madman. That's a real name. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like it was named by a second grader who ate a full bag of Halloween candy, found his dad's old war movies, and drew a strategy on a Denny's placemat with a broken crayon. And you'd be exactly right. Except this particular second grader has a nuclear football, a military budget that makes the next 10 countries look like they're fundraising with a bake sale, and a pathological diaper-filling terror of one specific four-letter word that rhymes with loser. And he can't say it. He won't say it. It's the Voldemort of his entire existence. Mention it, and his whole face does a thing. And that's our leadership. That's Washington. That's the magnificently turd-polished diplomatic apparatus currently blockading the Strait of Hormuz like it's a gas station bathroom with one working lock and a be right back sign that's been there since February. Cary Harris with you. This is the Cary Harrison Files. CaryHarrison.com, C-A-R-Y, and GoHarrison.com if that's easier. Live video streaming on YouTube, Instagram, Substack, everything with a chip and a signal, even a shortcut at kpfk.net. You can later listen as a podcast across every service. Simply Google the Cary Harrison Files, C-A-R-Y, our newsletter with a transcript of this entire show. Stuff we cannot say on the radio anymore is at CaryHarrison.com or GoHarrison.com. And our new Harrison text line is 310-737-TALK, 310-737-TALK. And there you can send both text messages or leave messages. Later in the show, another sermon from Brother Cletus Haversham Pike, who last week predicted the apocalypse from catfish behavior because our government has spent $22 million putting microphones in your underwear. This is true. Meta put cameras on your face. Somewhere between Ray-Bans and the elastic waistband, we lost the republic. But at least the battery lasts all day. It's surveillance capitalism, the book of Revelation, and federally funded scrunchable crotch technology, all in one sermon you did not see coming, and it's coming up in about a half hour. Now, back to Operation Madman, and I need you to really bend down for this one. Get your expectations on the floor. Get them below the floor. Get them in the crawl space where the possum lives. This is a strategy. It's an actual grown adult, Pentagon code-worded. Someone got paid a salary to name this strategy. The plan is to appear completely out of your gourd. Not to be out of your gourd. That part apparently takes care of itself. You just appear that way. Operation Madman, the official war-fighting doctrine for the biggest energy catastrophe on the planet, was named after a word a kindergartner uses when his juice box leaks. And it worked. If by worked, you mean the Strait of Hormuz, that oiled up little maritime choke point through which 20% of the world's petroleum gets its groove on every single day, that's now sealed tighter than a pickle jar that's been in the back of the fridge since the Obama administration. Closed, shut, done. Nighty-night, global energy supply. Don't let the geopolitical bed bugs bite. So the oil markets are up. The oil markets go down. Nobody tells you anything true. Everybody's winning. Nobody's winning. The strait is open. The strait is closed. Now, the intellectual ancestor of all this gorgeous galaxy-brained dumbassery runs through a man named Daniel Ellsberg. And that's the same Daniel Ellsberg, the Pentagon Papers guy, a former friend of this very show, the man who marched into Washington with a briefcase stuffed with inconvenient truths and basically handed the entire national security apparatus a suppository it hadn't consented to. And before even that, 1959, like when this station was born, right around that era, when your parents were still cheerful and cars had fins for absolutely no aerodynamic reason whatsoever, and the apocalypse at least had the decency to feel distant, Ellsberg gave a lecture called The Political Use of Madness. And he was studying Hitler's trick of performing irrationality to make other countries wet themselves and hand over whatever Hitler wanted. And the logic was simple, it was stomach turning. If you act crazy enough, people give you what you want just to get you to sit back down and stop making that face. And here we are, waddling around in a full pants, soiled stalemate. A stalemate! You know what that is in the nuclear age of geopolitics? It's two overgrown toddlers playing chicken in a stolen golf cart on a one-lane road, both of them absolutely positive that the other one is going to swerve, neither willing to admit that they blew past exit 40 20 miles ago and are now technically in a different country. And Washington can't back down because he'd be, so think it with me, a loser. And Iran won't negotiate because the last time they showed up to the table, they got bombed as a thank you gift. So here we sit, you and I, while the planet's entire energy supply is being monetized, weaponized, propagandized, and monetized again. And you're personally funding every drop of it at the pump, at the grocery store, and wherever else the invisible hand of the market has found a new orifice to invoice or fist. So let's be fair. Fairness is what separates us from the animals and from certain cable networks whose names rhyme with rock noose. Rock snooze. Because beneath all this spectacular theater, beneath the Madman cosplay and the Hormuz puppet show, there is a 60-year illegal military occupation. 60 years! That's not a situation. That's a lifestyle. That's a timeshare you can never get out of and nobody will buy. And yet here we are, still acting surprised, still calling it breaking news, still scheduling the panel discussion, as if 60 years of the same thing is anything other than a choice someone keeps making every single morning before breakfast. So before we bring on one of the smartest experts to explain Lucy, let me summarize. We've got a war with a code name that sounds like what happens when a frat pledge drinks something that he shouldn't and wakes up zip-tied to a lawn ornament. We have a blockaded strait that world leaders simultaneously swear is open and closed, like some kind of geopolitical bathroom stall with a broken latch that everyone's pretending works fine while the line outside wraps around the block. We have a dollar so jittery it's checking WebMD at 3 a.m. and still updating its will. We have a two-state solution so old it's got a penchant and a bad hip, and still nobody's doing anything about it. We have a nuclear non-acknowledgement policy so transparently stupid it makes peekaboo look like a binding legal contract, and leadership whose entire grand strategic doctrine, their magnum opus, the thing they apparently sat down and decided was the cornerstone of 21st century American power projection, is to act like they ate a fistful of crayons and washed it down with paint thinner and hope the other guy soils himself first. And you think this isn't the greatest era in human history. Honey, you're not failing to see the magnificence. You're just not crouched down far enough yet. Get on your belly. Face in the carpet. There you go. Now look up. Ah, it's beautiful. My guest today wrote all about this with the kind of clarity that makes powerful people deeply uncomfortable, which is precisely how you know it's worth reading. He's worked shoulder to shoulder with Noam Chomsky and the late Daniel Ellsberg. He chairs the sociology department at the University of San Diego. His affiliations read like the world's most eclectic academic cocktail party: Latin American studies, women's and gender studies, Asian studies, cognitive science, ethnic studies. He's written for the Journal of Palestine Studies and Anti-Semitism Studies. His latest piece at Global Policy, The Unfolding World War, The Political Use of Madness and the Fate of Republics, is getting more international response than anything he's ever written, including from leading authorities in the Middle East, Iran, and U.S.-Iranian relations. Ladies and gentlemen, and all of us literally in between, Professor Tom Reifer, welcome to the Cary Harrison Files.
Cary, well, I thought after Jonathan Swift passed that satire was dead, but you single-handedly revived it. One quick clarification. I know it's a little bit confusing, but it turns out that I had read an article in the Wall Street Journal that Trump may be facing his Nixon moment. Nixon threatened to use nuclear weapons secretly to end the Vietnam War on terms favorable to the U.S., but it turns out that actually the Iranians had been planning for this war since the 12-day war in June, and it was they who codenamed their plan, which they're now implementing, Operation Madman. Simultaneously, Trump, who substantively is a madman, but has a kind of narrow rationality, he decided that he was going to appear mad, which is easier for him than most, in order to get the Iranians to end the conflict on his terms. The problem with that is ending the conflict on his terms is that they surrender and they open themselves to being bombed by the U.S. and Israel anytime the U.S. and Israel wants. Not really a negotiating strategy.
What can I say? End of interview. I mean, here we are. This is like such madness. Both sides, you say, are running active propaganda operations, and the media in this country is uncritically reporting it. Can you walk us through this Hormuz Strait example? Like, who
Sure.
benefits from the fiction?
Well, actually,
that is open?
surprisingly enough, it's not just the news media. It's not just the news media in the U.S. It's also internationally. I'll give you an example. On April 18th, 19th, when the Financial Times has their weekend edition, they just put out one thing. The night before, the Iranians had said they're opening the strait, and Trump said the Iranians are saying they're opening the strait. Well, a door can be closed, and I can say I'm opening the door. But if I don't open the door is not open. So there's a big headline in the Financial Times: "Strait is open."
Oh, there you are, you academics.
The strait wasn't open for a single second, and it's not going to be open, and it has never been open since this war started, and it has been closed. Of course, the Trump administration says there's a ceasefire. Well, an act of war is a naval blockade is an act of war. It's not a ceasefire. Pete Hegseth said, well, the clock is stopped because there's a ceasefire. The IDF chief of staff said a few days ago, there is no ceasefire in Lebanon. So war is peace, ignorance is strength, and you know the rest from Orwell. It's really saying the strait continues to be closed and that we're in a stalemate, an escalating stalemate, like we were in Vietnam, apparently doesn't sell newspapers. So you just say the strait is open, the strait is closed. That sells a lot of newspapers, and the media kind of falls for it.
You know, speaking of selling things, when you say the strait is open, not you personally, when one says that from Washington, D.C., and it's not, the stock market seems to go up, a giant amount. What
Right.
if one knew that if one said something, one's friends could make millions or billions every other day?
That's an excellent point. And I'm sure if the world survives long enough, we will find about the deals and the bribes that Trump is getting from I mean, there's a lot of just open bribery, but I'm sure there's also Swiss bank accounts, and that's my speculation. I have no knowledge of it, but we have a long history of leaders like Helmut Kohl in Germany getting large swaths of money from arms dealers. But he said he wasn't going to tell people because that would be who it was, because that would be dishonorable.
Well, and honor, as we know, is everything in this special alchemy. Professor Tom Reifer, you worked with Daniel Ellsberg, who spent the last decades of his life warning about exactly this scenario. What did Ellsberg understand about the relationship between nuclear arsenals and political cowardice that our current leadership demonstrably does not?
Well, he understood that it was possible to make threats of the use of nuclear weapons, which the U.S. and Israel have long done, and so have the Russians. But he also understood, unlike the current people in the White House, the dangers of this strategy, the dangers of acting mad in a world of thermonuclear weapons. And one of the things that the New York Times brought out in a critical visual representation is that this isn't a regional war, this is a world war, which morphs with the existing world war between the Ukraine and Russia, with Russia's war of aggression, which was brought on in part, and it makes it no less condemnable, by the U.S. expansion of NATO in explicit violation of promises that were made to Gorbachev. So what you have is a world careening towards ever greater war, and of course the possibility of war between China and the United States. And the emperor has no clothes. In fact, I thought of just going on this radio show and just asking people to read and reread The Emperor Has No Clothes. Trump, in addition to what he's doing as criminally murderous and reckless, a violation of the Nuremberg sanction against crimes against the peace. When you attack a country, as Israel and the U.S. have done, that has not attacked you, that's a war of aggression. It's also unconstitutional without constitutional authorization, but Congress has abdicated its authority and the president has usurped it. And now the War Powers Act kicked in. Pete Hegseth's notion that you can just stop the clock and go back is not true. So the whole thing is outrageous and mad, and there needs to be a massive nonviolent protest movement to reverse this disastrous course.
Yeah, it's interesting how if this were today's Germany, if they declared they were going to invade Poland, everyone would be upset.
Right.
But somehow this is not that. And, you know, I was talking to somebody in Mexico, and they weren't that upset that they believe everyone voted in a certain direction, and here we are, but that people are sitting around doing nothing. Like 380 plus million people complain, eat dinner, watch Netflix, and they don't do a damn thing. While one person in the government spends $250 billion on a personal war without the government even being involved, and then sends the bill to the people, and the people do nothing in complete sedentary, disrelishment.
Well, there is one especially courageous person who's doing something which actually contrasts with what they did when the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany divided Poland, where they didn't say anything, amazingly enough. The Pope, who actually is the first American Pope. Well, actually, we had a Pope from the Americas, Pope Francis, but the Pope has condemned this war, and he's talked about a culture of peace. The Pope is standing up because the Pope has learned over time with just war criteria that if you attack another country that hasn't attacked you, if you think as Trump does, because he said to the Atlantic, I control the US and I control the world. He's a megalomaniac. He really, first of all, to believe that you do that or to want to do that is crazy. So the Pope is standing up to him. And I think that we should get behind the Pope and force Congress to act.
As an Episcopalian, I am willing to become a Catholic for these very reasons. It'll be good, clean fun. I didn't know you were
Episcopalian. They used to call them the Epistocrats. It was the ruling class religion, but then Pauli Murray and a bunch of other people became Episcopalian, so it's quite the different thing. Like the Jesuits. Shows you can turn around from empire and arms dealing and pave a different way.
And now we're just known for fresh flowers and needlepoint. So, but it's still a pleasant place to go, I think. I haven't been in a year. Cary Harrison with you. My guest is the great Tom Reifer, sociologist, scholar, and the man connecting Daniel Ellsberg's nuclear age Madman theory to the actual live Pentagon codenamed war, currently strangling the world's oil supply. If you want to know how we got here and what comes next, don't touch that dial because we'll know if you do. Actually, we won't know if you do, but I like to say that anyway. Tom Reifer, we visited a year ago, actually, and talked about the movie
Oppenheimer.
Thank you, Oppenheimer, and got some extraordinary angles that weren't in the movie and history lessons. And you're on the beat, and we're going to pause in a moment because we have to beg for just a little money, but everyone appreciates that because it keeps us going in a time where what you and I are doing is risky. 2 years ago, it would be entertainment. Right now, it's like we're Jonathan Swift, we're L. Frank Baum, we're whatever we are. Do you worry at your level at the university about saying things like this?
I don't worry at all. In fact, in March, Jürgen Habermas, the most famous philosopher in Europe who talked about the public sphere, died. And he talked about that originally rulers just thought that only they could talk. The public sphere was the talk for the rulers, not for the people. So ironically, on the same week that he died, Trump administration said that those people who don't say we're winning, that's their only metric, winning and losing, not morality, that Brendan Carr should go after the FCC licenses of the media companies. So this is it. We're back to fighting for all the things that made the country exceptional in a positive way, the First Amendment. And it's better to die in truth than to live a lie. And that's what I believe. And so I have no fear, but I'm afraid for the world. And I'm afraid that if we don't speak out, like Henry David Thoreau and others, that we will continue to go down a path which John Quincy Adams on July 4th, 1821, warned against, going in search of monsters to destroy. And he warned about the dangers of a bid for empire on America's part. And we have to walk away from the empire and support on this Nakba Day, where there was an ethnic cleansing of Palestine in 1948, to support a just two-state solution for the two peoples, which has overwhelming support, but has been blocked by the U.S. and Israel.
Well, it's real estate. And we know the value of a neighborhood when the demand is high.
Right. Well, I thought given that the American Revolution, which I was a supporter of, not existing at the time, but a lot of it was about real estate speculation. So it's kind of fitting that we finally have a real estate speculator that people know is a real estate speculator in the White House. But of course, these are lands that people live on. I'm of Jewish descent, but I've long supported the Palestinian struggle for human rights and dignity. They have the right to live in peace too. And we as Americans have no right to block an internationally accepted peace settlement that the vast majority of the world has long supported, and they just reiterated their support at the UN in 2025.
I guess de Tocqueville was right that the people gets what government it deserves, and at least it has articulated itself with a real estate developer. I mean, we could go on forever about the cartoon-like ridiculosity of all of it. Rapist. It's just like the Marquis de Sade would be wildly thrilled. But we'll get to that in a second. We're just going to pause for a second because we need to take a little pause. Coming back, we're going to continue talking to the great Professor Thomas Reifer. We're going to talk a little bit more about why isn't there a two-state solution. We're going to talk about what is the fundament is another word for ass, behind what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz and other things to bring you up to speed on what's going on with one of the finest, most well-crafted brains that is still allowed to exist today. And that would be Professor Thomas Reifer in south of us in San Diego. Cary Harrison, don't forget, our newsletter is something where we can put things, including an entire transcript of this program, along with other product that we cannot say on the air because of Brendan Carr, who Professor Reifer mentioned just moments ago, is now eyes in, watching us molecularly, everything we say, everything we do. So in the newsletter at CaryHarrison.com, CaryHarrison.com, you get a full transcript of the show. You get a bunch of other odds and ends that we simply cannot do on the radio. But speaking of radio, let's do something right now on the radio.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
Call 877-406-5860. That's 877-406-5860. Call 877-406-5860. That's 877-406-5860. Call us right now.
The Cary Harrison Files.
Like NPR on acid. CaryHarrison.com.
And it is the Cary Harrison Show. Glad to be here with you. We're talking right now to the great Thomas Reifer. He is a professor at the University of San Diego, sociologist, scholar, and the man connecting Daniel Ellsberg nuclear age madman theory to the actual live Pentagon codenamed war, currently strangling the world's oil supply. And we're looking at how we got here and what the future might look like through his extraordinary research. Professor Reifer, Ellsberg's Political Uses of Madness lecture was from 1959. So that's 66 years ago. The thermonuclear age was already terrifying then. What would Ellsberg make of Operation Madman as an actual Pentagon code name in 2026? Would he be horrified, or would he shrug and say, yeah, I called it?
A little correction. So the Iranian war strategy is codenamed Operation Madman, not the Pentagon strategy. But it turned out that, so the New York Times had an article about this. The Iranians have been preparing for this war since the June 12-day war, and they codenamed their strategy Operation Madman. But it turned out that at the same time, in response, Trump has consciously decided to use the political uses of madness to make himself appear to be mad in order to get the Iranians to submit. Now, interestingly, in his 1959 lectures, he used the example of Hitler for this strategy. And what Hitler said was, regarding the Czechs must be annihilated. Last night on Sean Hannity, Trump said either the Iranians would make a deal or they will be annihilated. So he's actually using the same language. Of course, Trump doesn't really read, so I don't assume he knows that Hitler said that. But basically, by saying that he's going to destroy Iranian civilization, threatening to annihilate Iran, he's effectively making nuclear threats. And he's got a big problem because we are in an escalating stalemate for which Trump and Hegseth have no idea what they're doing and no way out. And one of the things that Dan Ellsberg said in his posthumously published book called Truth and Consequences, just out, there are unthinkable thoughts in the White House, but nuclear threats and nuclear wars are not among them. However, surrender is. Remember, for Trump, the worst word in the dictionary is loser, of which he is the greatest loser in world history, but politically, he's been very successful. Unfortunately, all his policies are aiming at the destruction of the world, which he wants to do for making America great again, he says, and helping his fossil fuel buddies, and also aggressive war.
Cary Harrison with you. This is the Cary Harrison Files. Don't forget to get our newsletter at CaryHarrison.com or GoHarrison.com. There you're going to get a full transcript of this conversation with Professor Reifer. Plus, you're going to get other things that we simply cannot do on the radio anymore. Also, live streaming right now on YouTube, on Substack, on Instagram. Simply Google Cary Harrison, anything you want with a chip and a signal, and up it comes. And you can see the well-shaven, highly manicured look of our guest, Professor Tom Reifer. And Professor Reifer, you've received more response to this piece than anything you've written, including from top regional authorities. What specifically are they telling you that isn't making it into the mainstream press? What's the suppressed story here?
Well, I think partly the suppressed story is that this is a world war. It's not a regional war. People keep on saying it's a regional war. It's an ongoing war in which the U.S. has no exit strategy. It's a total disaster for the world, the greatest energy shock in world history. And the strategy of permanent war is not a strategy for regional or global stability. I think they also recognize that nuclear threats are dangerous. And even if you might decide that both actors are acting within a narrow, circumscribed notion of rationality, as George Ball once said regarding Vietnam, but nobody listened to him, he was Undersecretary of State, things are in the saddle and ride mankind. Whatever you think you're doing, the idea that you can control a war is mythical. And Trump has entered this extraordinarily reckless gamble, the most reckless gamble he's ever made yet. And it's blowing up in his face, and it's blowing up in the world's face. And regional experts understand that. The last thing is that part of the complexities of this war have to do with earlier wars. So Israel invaded Lebanon with U.S. support, another war of aggression in 1982, from which we got Hezbollah and which helped us get Hamas. So the complexities of this war have to do with failed wars of aggression and military occupations in the past. There is no solution other than peace and justice in Israel-Palestine and backing off the crime of aggressive war.
What a great way to end. Regrettably, we're out of time. I'm going to reframe the word MAGA. Instead of making America great again, it's make academia great again. And you, my friend, are doing exactly that. It makes me want to go back to school. Well, I kind of did for free today, and everyone else did too. The benefit of your knowledge and your generosity. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to having you back again. You're an awesome guest, for the record, and I appreciate having you on.
Thanks, Gary. You make me blush, and I don't think I deserve the word great, but I appreciate the kindness.
Excellent. Thank you so much, my friend. Cary Harrison with you. We've been talking to Professor Tom Reifer, sociologist, scholar, the man connecting Daniel Ellsberg's nuclear age madman theory to the actual live codenamed war, codenamed by the Iranians, it turns out, but borrowed, pilfered, used, redeployed by our own, formerly known as Pentagon, now Department of War, all to strangle the world's oil supply. So the market goes up, it goes down. When it goes down, the folks with lots and lots of money buy more, and then it goes up and they make more, and then it goes down and up and down and up, and it is a boon. And at some point, that will be, assuming that there's a future that we all understand and a system that we still control, there will be a reckoning for sure.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, call now and get free shipping of your new CGM, plus we'll bill your insurance for you.
877-282-8102. That's 877-282-8102. 877-282-8102. 877-282-8102.